This is the Sabbath School lesson for the fourth quarter, 2020.
Lesson 4, The Eyes of the Lord, the Biblical Worldview, for October 17 to 23, read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Friday, October 23. The true object of education is to restore the image of God in the soul, wrote Ellen White in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 595. With this idea in mind, we can see why a solid Christian worldview is essential for Adventist education. After all, as we noted earlier, education in and of itself is not necessarily good. People can be educated, even highly educated, in ideas and attitudes that are contradictory to the principles found in the Bible. That's why, as Seventh-day Adventists, our educational system must be based on the Christian worldview. This means, then, that all general fields of education, science, history, morality, culture, and so forth, will be taught from that perspective, as opposed to one that contradicts or even just ignores it. Also, as said earlier, but worth repeating, there's no such thing as a neutral perspective. All of life, all of reality is viewed through the filter of one's worldview, whether or not that worldview is cogently and systematically thought out. Hence, it is essential that the biblical worldview form the foundation of all Seventh-day Adventist education. And that brings us to our 4 discussion questions for this week. 1. What are examples that you can think of from history in which entire systems of education were, or even are, very destructive? What were some of those places? What were students taught there? And what can we learn from them? How can we protect our own educational systems from these destructive influences? 2. This week's lesson looked at some of the key points of a Christian worldview: the existence of God, the creation, the Bible, the plan of redemption, and the law of God. What other important elements should be included in any complete formulation of a Christian worldview? 3. An 18th century thinker once wrote, "O conscience, conscience, thou divine instinct, thou certain guide of an ignorant and confined, though intelligent and free being, thou infallible judge of good and evil, who makes man to resemble the deity." What's right or wrong with that position? And 4. Look at this Ellen G. White statement again. The true object of education is to restore the image of God in the soul. What does that mean? How does this show us why Adventist education must be so different from much of how the world itself views education? Inside Story. Our mission story this week is titled Missionary's Darkest Night, and it's by Mary Grace Beloria. I never thought that a single night would be the darkest in my life. It was during that darkest night that God showed me his marvellous light. Heavy rain awakened me at 12:45 a.m. It was completely dark in the one-bedroom house that I shared with a missionary partner in eastern Samar province. Only 2 weeks remained of our 1-year term with 1,000 missionary movement, and a big earthquake had left the area without power. I couldn't see anything, but I heard strange noises. Grabbing a flashlight, I directed it toward the door. I couldn't see anyone, but I felt certain that an intruder had entered. Shaking with fear, I knelt under the large mosquito net that covered my partner's bed and mine. "Lord, please save us, just like you saved Daniel and Joseph," I prayed. "We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you." I lay back on my bed, trembling, repeating Psalm 23, verse 1, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." I picked up the flashlight again. What I saw was beyond my imagination. It was horrible. I saw a man with red eyes and wet hair. He held a large bowler knife and was kneeling inside our mosquito net. Terrified, I screamed at the top of my lungs. My partner awoke and we shouted for help. The intruder lunged at us with the sharp, single-edged knife, and we tried to kick him away. Suddenly, something hard hit me. I fell to the ground, pain sweeping over my body. "Lord, am I going to die?" I thought. Hearing someone trying to open the house door, I cried, "Open the window!" When my partner and I heard the window being opened, we ran to it and leaped out. A neighbour saw my battered face and asked what had happened. When she heard about the attacker, she rushed home, fearful for her own children. My partner and I walked barefoot in wet, deserted streets, calling for help. Everyone seemed to be asleep. Finally, someone took us to the hospital at 3 a.m. My partner had slight cuts on a hand and a foot. I had a serious cut from my left eye to my jaw. A physician gave me many stitches and injections. The happiest moment in that dark night came with the morning sun. As the sun arose, it seemed to be shining just for me. I smiled. I felt Jesus' deep love. He had been with me from the beginning and would be with me until the end, the shepherd watching over his sheep. The attacker was caught that morning, and he remains in prison. I was not discouraged. 8 months later, at the age of 22, I began a second year of service with 1000 Missionary Movement, this time in South Korea. I now am in my 3rd year of service. I thank God for the experience. The Lord said in Jeremiah 33, verse 3, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know." My outlook on life has changed. My life isn't mine. It's God's. And there's a lovely photo there of Mary Grace Beloria.
Hi there. Thanks for watching this video on the Advent-band Ministries YouTube channel. Please subscribe and click the bell icon to be alerted whenever we upload new videos. So, until we meet him in the clouds, may God continue to bless you.
This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind and Hearing Impaired, Christian Record Services for the Blind, the Sabbath School Department, and Hope Channel. You can also listen on the official Sabbath School 4 app and the Apple iTunes app, Sabbath School with Percy Harrold. Remember, God is always faithful.